Hi everyone, this is Kelly from The Truth in Story, and today we're going to be looking at a deck that you can pick up for quite cheap. This is, let me show you the backing. I love the back of this. I saw this on Instagram a long time ago when I got this and wanted it for the backing alone. But this is the Chinese Oracle script Divination cards by Miss Benevolence, who wrote the Holistic Tarot. Now, this is a deck that you can get off of her website. You can download the files to print them for free on your own printer, or as I did, she gives you the files that you can send them to makeyourplayingcards.com and get them printed out on cardstock, which is what I did here quite some time ago when she first put these up. I used to have to email her, but she actually has a link up with her Tao of Craft supplemental materials, free materials that you can download these straight off her website. There will be a link in the description box below. She does, I believe, I'm not sure if she has it on the website. At one time she did have a note, if you wanted to donate some money, she's like, any $1, $10, doesn't matter, and no dollars, she's not required to, but if you get the deck and you like the deck and you're working with it and want to donate some money towards having that free deck, you can through a PayPal account. So very inexpensive, and you can just print this for free on your own home computer as well. And so fantastic. Now I didn't realize this because I've had this for a while. This is the little white book that I have printed out. I've had this for a while, and she wasn't really talking about the Tao of Craft, which is her new book. I probably should pause for a moment just in case the few people who don't know who I'm talking about. Benevolence is the author of the Holistic Tarot, which is a huge 800-page kind of reference manual for tarot. Amazing. It is the only tarot book that I own that's not a guidebook. And I am anxiously awaiting the Tao of Craft because I've been fascinated with Taoism, and it has a lot to do with sigil making. Well, when I first received this deck or had it printed out, I didn't note all of the references in the little white book to do with the Tao of Craft, because the Tao of Craft is about Taoist sigil making. Now these are Chinese bone script is what's being used in these, but there is definitely a connection. It's on her Tao of Craft page. So if that's a book that you're interested in, then this is going to be a great deck to also have. I've been using this for quite some time. I should have looked up when I picked this up and had it printed off. I did do what she said. So there is a little white book that's about, let me look here. Well, that's in September of 2015. I feel like I got it pretty quickly after she put it out. But this is a talisman by Lazu, which is, and I know I'm going to slaughter these names, so please forgive me. And she does talk about, it does talk about the forthcoming book, The Tao of Craft, to learn more about this particular talisman here. It's about 56 pages. I didn't print out all of it. I didn't print out the printing instructions or the legal mumble jumble, as she calls it. Up to the spread pages, it's about 52 pages long. She does, excuse me, it's one of those days today. This is not even for commercial publication and that sort of thing. She talks about that. She talks about how she conceived it, which I think is fascinating, because she does talk about how she was needing to wake up early for her mom to take her mom back to the airport. So she maybe wasn't sleeping soundly, or she was concerned. So she woke up thinking she heard voices, and she thought, oh dear, I overslept because that I needed, people are up and moving because I overslept and I need to take mom to the airport. Or I don't know if she would say mom, that's just me. But, and then the next thought she had is that she should be making an oracle for using ancient, using ancient Chinese script from oracle bones for divination, and that each would have a phrase indicating the script's message. And she thought that was a really good idea, but she ended up getting up, and within a half an hour she'd completed all 32 scripts that she wanted to include, along with accompanying messages. She didn't feel like it was complete, so she went back to bed and wrote longhand into a notebook to memorialize some of her ideas for the divination system. So then she decided the cards and all this kind of thing and kind of went through this. But what was interesting is she went to the airport, took her parents back. She came back, and basically before that next night, the complete system was worked out. So that was pretty cool. She says that she doesn't really feel like she can take complete credit for it, because she felt more as if she was simply a secretary taking down notations, more that it wasn't coming directly from her, that maybe she was receiving that information. So that was pretty cool. So she talks about that. She talks about Chinese oracle script, and this is a very old script, and the fact that the imagery itself can be looked at for part of the story. And that's one of the things I really like about this oracle deck. I need to close my curtain because I can see it's making weird shadows. So I quite like that aspect of it, because within the script itself you can actually see what's going on, which we'll see when we zoom in on the cards much more closely. And she gives some examples of how that is. So the images themselves, while they look to simply be script or writing, they are pictographs. There are pictures that are involved. I don't know if pictographs is the right word, but there is images to be seen and to be garnered from the actual images of the sigils or the script. So she goes in and talks about that. She talks about reading with the cards, and she talks about reversals. Now, I do read with the reversals with these, because when it is upright, it is the yang or active energy. When it's reversed, it is the yin or the receptive energy. And I find that that really, opens things up. And so I do always read with reversals with this deck. She has one thing to note, which I will show you more when we look at the breakdown of the card. The numbers are very specifically picked for Chinese numerology, so the numbers are part of it. They are definitely not just random numbers. She picks specific numbers for the specific scripts there, so that's important, as well as the messages at the bottom are part of the divinatory result. So she says it represents either a prognostication or a prescription. So a card with a prognostication suggests what is done, and now the focus is on navigating the effects. A card with the prescriptions suggests that there is much still at play. Variables are not yet confirmed, and so it's telling you what needs to be done so that you can prevail. So I quite like that aspect, and you'll see that when we go through the cards themselves. But she does talk about reversals. She doesn't always use them with this. However, she does. She did intend for this to be a system using reversals. So she talks about that. Then she goes into a, construction of the card, which we're going to come back to. I really liked this, and I did do this. She does talk about, she really asks for people using this to take the time to do this. Once you've printed them or had them printed out, to wait until the full moon, the first full moon, keeping them in a sacred space until that time, and then saying this phrase just one time while holding the cards, invoking Amitabha Buddha and the Bodhisattva Kuan Yin to protect and shield me and these cards. Great divine light surround me and these cards. I went ahead and did it in Mandarin because the way she wrote it out, I just did it as is. And I have to say that it was quite a wonderful consecration feeling, and I definitely use the cards a lot more at full and new moons, perhaps because of this moon. And you can also put your own god, she says, and your own goddess as well, if you want to change that up. I did it as they were intended, because here we have the god and Kuan Yin here, or the Buddha and Kuan Yin here. So, but you can place in your own if that is the case. So before we look at the cards themselves, let's take a look at how the cards are broke down. Now, when we look at these cards, we can see a couple different things. Let's zoom in here a little bit more. This is showing us in the guidebook. That the anatomy of the card, we have the numbered card, and she explains, as I said, that it is not arbitrary, but the Chinese numerology is deciding which card number was assigned for each of the cards. Then we have the second as sort of the title, but it's more than just the title. She says that this is if she had to express the meaning of this Chinese character in one word, this would be it, which is quite difficult to do. And so she was trying to really make sure that that really stood out. And then we have C, we have the actual Oracle Bone script corresponding with the traditional Chinese character that she selected. And she said it varies between scripts from the Shang Dynasty, the ZHOU Dynasty, and the QIN Dynasty. We have the modern, traditional Chinese character. We have the pinyin for how to pronounce the Chinese character in Mandarin. And then we have the companion message or phrasing that's been conceived to go along with each of the oracle scripts. So that's what we have on the cards themselves. And then the book goes into I think I talked about the consecration already. And so then we look at what we have here for each of the cards. So, for example, for Luminance, right, in the guidebook, we have the number 1, the title Luminance. We have what we see on the card itself, the bone script, the modern Chinese script, the pinyin pronunciation in Mandarin, and then the phrase that goes with it. And then we get 3 additional things. We get the yang, the yin. So if it's upright, it would be yang. If it's reversed, it will be yin, and that changes the meaning of the cards. And then at the bottom, it tells us anything we need to know about the script itself. So this tells us that this is a combination of the character for fire and for person. And so fire person, luminance, radiating with divine light, shielded and well protected. So that's what we have for each one of the figures until we get through all of them. And then we have the reading that goes with this. The spread, which I will show you after we look at the cards. So very handy. I've had no problems working with these cards, and using the guidebook has been very helpful. I do try to read through it now and again, although a lot of times I just go off of this and sort of use the yin and the yang, sort of receptive and active energy and what that might mean. But I have already read through this book quite a bit. So let's take a look at the cards. We just talked about Luminance. So this is about radiating with divine light, being shielded and well protected. I talked about the fire and the person. And for Yang, advancing bodes well, and it's favorable to proceed. You're walking an illuminated path. Yin, it means there's potential for success if you manifest this energy. And then it says what to do. Pray to invoke heaven, and you will always have guidance. You are not alone. So the 1, everything is kind of set. The yin, things are still potential for success, but there's some manifesting that has to be done. Number 2, we have affinity. Affirmation, a faultless pairing. Opposites become complements. So we can see here a hand is reaching out to take measure. Balance and symmetry found in which the hand is measuring. So that's the image that we're seeing. So these are more like pictographs. They're not just the letter A. These are more like glyphs or sigils that the image itself does have something to add to things. And then, of course, it gives the yin and the yang energies, which I'm not going to go through with all of them. Here we have abundance. I really like this one because here we can see there's a dish, and these are sheaves of wheat. So the plate or the dish is full. Abundance, great capacity, advancement, peaking to fullness, fruition. Yes. I love this one. I just love the way that it looks. So this is Serenity, resting state, balance, stability, equanimity. So for Yang, it's be calm and maintain composure. There is success if you find your equilibrium. If you have it as Yin, we have inconsistency and emotional extremes are stopping you from being able to achieve what you're trying to achieve. So it gives us an idea of why you have not received serenity. And you can see here, this looks like a scale that is perfectly balanced. Number 5 is shift, a change in position. Transference is productive. Transfer your focus, efforts and attention elsewhere. There's a fork in the road. And this talks about in the yin energy, there's a potential is there if you do X, Y, and Z, overcome the resistance, take a risk, these kinds of things. So I quite like it. One of the things that I do like about this is that if something is off balance, if it shows up as being off balance, the actual divination meanings help to restore, to tell you how to go about restoring the balance. So I like that because it goes beyond just saying, oh, this is unbalanced, and then it shows you actually what you should do to recover that balance. Number 6, we have exchange. Trade flourishes, nourishing growth. Again, for Yang, it's advancing and is favorable. It's good. There's a lot of good information about whether you should move forward, whether you need to wait a bit, whether you're declining, what you need to do. So when this is reversed, there's no advancement, and there are delays. And then how do we figure out how to get out of their delays, which I quite like that. Teacher, this is discipline and guidance. A purpose comes to light. But you have to have the discipline and guidance. A teacher-student, mentor-mentee's relationship illuminates new facets of your life path. When it's reversed, you are the student. Be humble and ready to learn from somebody. I love the wheel here. Spinning in cycles, seek out an exit. So this is that idea of you're walking in circles and you need to find a way out of it. And same thing when it's flipped. It's like you think you're moving, but you're really just moving in circles. Here we have the journey card. Occasion for a voyage, take on the expedition. Again, for Yang, advancing is bodes well. It's favorable to proceed. It's okay. There's risks are going to pay off. When you flip it and it's in the yin energy, the manifestation is delayed, but still be prepared because things are going to move forward. Conflict, controversy, dissidence, opposing views, bringing strife. And when it's reversed, pending conflict takes an unfavorable turn to not take risks. So sometimes it says take them, and sometimes not so much, which I really like. There's definitely, especially with the reversals, the deck feels very balanced with light and shadow and really giving good messages. Here we have number 11, Spirit. A spirit lingers nearby, an unseen influence. This has shown up for me a couple times and has been very striking when it shows up. And with the other cards, it really makes a lot of sense. When it is flipped, there is an obstacle hindering you that has to do with an unseen influence. I love the cauldron because this one, when you reverse it, you think about things dumping out of the cauldron. So you need to upturn the cauldron and clean everything out of it so that you can just sort of, a catharsis time has shown. I love that. Poison. So this kind of reminds me of the mouse card in Lenormand. Something you need to get rid of the poison or it's going to start eating things away. It's that the decay is going to set in. And when you reverse it, it tells kind of why. If there's a long state of stagnation is causing this to happen. You have to act in order to break through. So I love that. Here we have the book, Seek Out Knowledge. The written word elucidates. And when you flip it to the yin, you possess knowledge that you need, but you're not tapping into it. It's there, but you're not tapping into that information. Number 15, we have untie the knot, release and unravel, give amnesty, let go. I love that. Yeah, I love the releasing and unraveling. This has also shown up in very pertinent times. Here we have number 16, prosperity. And I do really recommend, if you get this deck, to read through all of the guidebook. I don't always, well, I do. I usually always read through once, but I think in this case it's really important because you can see here that we have a wine jug or offerings placed before an altar. So it's that going towards increase in material gains, and it makes sense when you look at what these are. It is more than just a symbol there, or just a letter of the alphabet, and so I think it's really amazing to figure those out. Here we have affluence, ascension, and advancement, or gains in status. When it's reversed, that can be delayed. The potential for success is there, but there's some things that aren't known, and it's kind of being delayed. Longevity, vitality, stamina, life of bliss, the good endures. Again, same thing. When it's reversed, the potential is there, but we just don't know everything about it, and we need to devote more time to our sense of health and well-being. So a lot of times with the yang, because it's the active energy, right? So a lot of times with the yang, we have that advancing bodes well, but greater force must be used to accelerate, or something along that lines. And with the yin, we often get the delay because it is more receptive. It isn't active. It isn't pushing forward. But then what to do with that information usually follows within the information. So this is saying advancing as well, but we have to use more force to accelerate that. Whereas if it's the other way, you haven't fully anticipated all the obstacles that you're going to face, and so you need to have bigger preparations and more resources to be able to overcome the barriers and start that movement forward. Here we have stasis. So there is a girdle, or a symbol of restriction, which I think is quite lovely, alongside of water. On the left side of the oracle script is a river or a stream. On the right, an emperor or king seeking to cross that stream. I think that's quite interesting there too. Whereas this one on Yang, it says avoid risks during this short term. So that's quite interesting, because instead of movement, we do have that sense of right now, avoid risks, wait for the right opportunity to come about. So it's not necessarily negative, but this isn't the time to move right now. Here we have joy. Respite is needed for the pursuit of joy. Take a moment or a pause, but the pause is to do something that is joyful, that brings you joy. I love that. To establish structural considerations, the master builder undertakes a challenge. So here we have the planning and building phase being very critical, and if it's reversed, we really want to pay attention to the roots and the foundation of this, what we're trying to establish. Here we have the split. 1 becomes 2, and it doesn't necessarily mean it's divided or division, but that there is growth in that splitting into 2. Quite interesting. And the yin is like, don't try to force things together that maybe don't need to be together. The differences here aren't meant to be reconciled. Like, this is quite powerful. Here we have a join, or bring together. So first we had split, now we're bringing it together, connecting and uniting. I love the yin on this because it shows that people know that are in the situation, are aware that we have to sacrifice something of our independence in order to work together, but that in the end will be best, that will it will be worth it in the end to give up some of your independence to work with somebody else. I quite like that. Here we have fate. It is destiny. Continue on the path. This one is quite interesting because I'm not a huge fan of the word fate all the time, although I do think we do have a destiny. So Yang here is destined for greatness, assured victory to reward good deeds of the past, embrace the prophecy, you are on the right path, walk onward. So I do like that because I do think we are on large trajectories, and this tells us we're kind of on the right path. When we reverse it, it says, unavoidable does not mean unfavorable. Do not resist the effect caused by past karma. Fate is the immutable outcome after the exercise of free will. Walk the path to the end. It leads towards an illuminated horizon. So this is that kind of reminder in Yin that the path that we're on is as a result of something that we did with free will and intention. We're just kind of having to play out what we set into motion. And so I quite like that. Here we have a decoy. Do not take the bait, resist the lure. So I love this because she talks about here where we have a dumpling, because they used to use Chinese dumplings. The fishermen would use them to bait fishes. So I think that was pretty cool. Forbear from both action and reaction. The best, that way you will not be lured. So it's just like, okay, hold, don't, you're meant for something better than what looks like it's dangling in front of your face. But that's going to take a little while. It's going to be harder to get that. When it's reversed, there are other people who are actually trying to lure you. So that gives you some more information. Here we have healing, full recovery, more and more toward the better. I love this because the foundation of the word is heart. And heart symbolizes the emotional plane, also willpower, the soul, and inner strength. And then there is an altar of offerings to the god for sacrifice, indicating consent, approval, or an affirmation from the divine that all will be well, which is one of my mantras. So I quite love that. So this is all to do with healing. To recover, it says, first heal your heart. Love it. Hardship. Fear creates difficulty. No fear, no difficulty. I love that. It talks about something that is blocking your growth is causing fears to set in. When it's in reverse, it talks about how there's been a lot of suffering in the past, but you've actually learned a lot from this. And so that helps you to move forward in a more productive way. So I love that as well. I really do think that this is one of those decks that really you lose something by not using reversals, in my personal opinion. 29, we have a sudden jolt. An upheaval, seek shelter, the rain shall pass and grows. So we have that sort of tower moment, but it's a reminder that you might need to take shelter right now, but this is going to produce growth in the end. So it kind of does feel like a tower card in a way. Here we have 30 for sentimentality. I love this one because it has a verdant heart. Growth will be guided by intuition, not sense. And it talks about how we have, again, the Chinese radical for heart. And we have another figure, which means green, azure, or verdant. So it's a heart open for growth is what we're looking at. I love that because you have to be open in order for that growth to really take hold. I love, love, love that. And yin way, it says you miss the mark when you try too hard to be rational. You do not yet possess the mental capacity to understand. Use your intuition to expand the capacity, because then that's going to obviously allow that to grow. Love that. Here we have the sword, using the sword to cut away excess. This has you identify your sword, your arms, and strike to cut out what is growth stunts, and which stunts growth. And then when you do it the other way, it's you have lots of weeds, and you have to kind of cut through what isn't supposed to be there, so that you can have restore the balance and have things growing again. Stability, of course. So first we have the sword cutting things away, and then we have things stabilizing. Conditions are in your favor. Again, you've got everything you need to prevail. Great prosperity, great prospects. And then if it's the other way, you have a good potential for future stability. But you have to look below the surface and really see what's going on. So again, really recommend using the guidebook for a while when you first get started, because even though it does have everything on there, I think if you don't have a really strong connection with the concepts of yin and yang, you might miss some of these meanings through the, or if you're not Chinese, if you're Chinese and can speak, know what these mean, can see the sigils for what they are, then you might be able to get away with that. But those of us who don't know ancient Chinese bone oracle script, I do think that it's important to work with the little white book so you can really get those added layers of that yin and yang energy. The last card is Benevolence, and this is compassion is the exalted state, goodwill is returned in kind. So it's that sense of benevolence. You achieve merit by giving generously, being virtuous, and through mental cultivation. And same thing here, when it's reversed, you're going to achieve an exalted state, but it's by virtuous conduct, virtuous speech, virtuous thought. So it's quite beautiful. This card reminds me of the image that she has in the book, which I believe she drew. I'm 99.9% sure she drew, because I know she drew all of the things for Tao of Craft so that she didn't have to worry about copyrights and things of that nature. And so we have the Buddha, as it says, images from Tao of Craft by Benevolence, which is forthcoming. And we have Kuan Yin and the Buddha here. And this makes me think of Kuan Yin quite a bit. So that is the last card. And of course, just so you can see them up close, here are the beautiful backings. So again, I've already said this a bunch of times, I really do love this deck. I have used it quite a bit since I've had it, and I've had it, I should look up how long I've had it. I don't remember when she first put it out. But I have had it since she first put it out on her Instagram for people to be able to get it. I sent away. So I've had it for a good amount of time. And I've used it quite a bit for myself. You can use it just to pull 3 cards, or do a 9 card, just how you would traditionally do it. But I have to say that very often, or most often, I do use it for 3 cards if I really want a specific question answered, especially when I want to know the way for what I need to do, because I do feel like one of the strengths of this deck is that it gives you ways out of the blockage, or ways whether you should pause or whether you should move. It seems to give you that sort of directionality about whether you should move forward or you should pause, or what you should do. And I find that to be quite useful. It's not something I think that you always get in an oracle deck. Now, the reading that she shows is the one that I use the most. When I am using this deck, I am most often using the deck with this 9-card low shoe spread. So she talks about here how the low shoe dates back. I'm going to read this real quick because I think this is important. Dates back to prehistoric China during the Xia dynasty, 2100 to 1600 BC, and was used by prehistoric shamans as far back as 2500 BC. The low shoe comes with a fascinating story. So she talks about here how there's a legend where a turtle comes out from the river with the square imprinted on its shell. And so the shaman king at the time, who was Yu the Great, saw it and devised the low shoe. So with this low shoe, he was able to devise an irrigation system by cutting up China into sections of 9, as we see here. And then throughout history, this low shoe square has been used in feng shui, fortune telling, divination, and other Eastern esoteric practices. And so it talks about it being a magic square. The low shoe is a magic square where the numbers 1 through 9 are positioned in a grid and equal the sum of 15 in every direction. So you have 9, 10, 11 plus 4 is 15, right? 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So every direction you go, it symbolizes 15. Per Chinese tradition, the number 15 represents the harmony of life and the order of the universe. It's the number 15 is a product of factor of 3 for the trinity of heaven, earth, and man, multiplied by the factor of 5 for the 5 phases and 5 directions of Chinese geomancy: north, south, east, west, and center. It is the number of the Tao, or the way. So if you can put them out in any order. I do it the way she shows it, even though she says she doesn't always do it that way. She'll just put it down and accept that it's what cards are going to come up what they need to in that position. But I quite like it because when you do it, you do create a sigil. You can see the sigil overlaid here. And that's what her book Tao of Craft is going to be about, which I can't wait for it to come out. And so I do it the way it says: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, because it creates that craft, that sigil of power. And so then each of the squares has a positional meaning, and we'll go through that as I lay one down. Now I'm going to go ahead and do a general reading for somebody. That way, as I usually try to do, I don't really like readings that have no core or no meaning to them, because I just don't feel like they're good examples of how well it can work. So I'm going to go ahead and do this for somebody, and he knows who he is. And he hasn't had a reading in quite a long time, and it's somebody that I have worked with before, so I have some idea of how the things, which it helps me when I'm trying something new, I find, to work with somebody that you have a little bit of background with their situation, because it does let you start to see whether things are touchstoning, whether they're relevant, which you assume anyways, but it's nice when you're first playing with a deck, I think, to have that sort of connection with the person that you're reading for, because it does help. When I'm doing reversed readings, I don't do a lot of reverse readings. I always do it with Deste. I do it with the Curious Oracle, and I also do it with this one. I do like a good table shuffle. And with this as a smaller deck, and it's both size and card number, it's quite easy. So I do like to do a good table shuffle. And then I'll usually do a little bit of a hand shuffle. I'll split it in half and twist it every once in a while, just to keep it randomizing. Oh, and we have some jumpers. I don't generally have issues with jumpers. My camera's been really wacky, and so I've been really trying not to touch the table, and it's making me hold my arms at a weird position. Okay. Okay, so we start down here with 1, and I sort of start to put it in place as I go. I don't really worry too much about it. I adjust as I go, because you're going to be having gaps if you do this the way that it sets out. So number 1 here is professional development and career, and we have the wheel card here, and this right away I feel like, okay, I've tapped in. I know this really applies to this person's career issues at the moment, and so I feel like, okay, I've kind of tapped into things the way I feel like I should. Here we have love, romance, marriage, relationships, unions, that kind of thing up here, number 2. Number 3 is over here, and we have the Cauldron. This is the domestic sphere, the home, the family. Even can reflect the past. It can just that sort of daily life stuff is what I kind of see with this one. 3. So up here we have number 4. This is assets, finances, personal prosperity, these kinds of things, money issues, right? So then I can start to adjust. Okay, well, this needs to come up a little bit, and I'll adjust to make sure it's all in the viewfinder before it's done. So that is Wait, I did something wrong. Oh, yeah, I did that. So that's up there. So then we have number 5, which is smack in the middle. And this is to do with health and wellness and personal vitality. So check in on the health. Number 5. Number 6 is down here and 7 is here. 6 is community, relations, allies. It does talk about relations. I don't really do. I do family here. So this for me is more community and friends and co-workers, even like the people in your sphere but that aren't family members. That's kind of how I read this one. Number 7 is your creativity. This is your innovations, fertility, children. That has to do with creation, right? But I very much look here in sort of that sort of our career, how are we putting out, how are we expressing ourselves creatively? Now over here is about knowledge and education. It does also add arts and culture and things of that nature. I use that in a general sense, but more knowledge, education, training, classes, whereas this is more to do with creating an artistic things nature that you are actually creating. And then the 9th one is the achievement of your ambitions or your social status here. So here we have all of the cards out, laying out, and we can start to process these. Now I'm going to go through these so you can kind of see how they are yin and yang, so that we can get a message or start to see read this check-in for this particular person. Now when I read this, I do go in the same order, although you really don't have to, right? You could simply just start reading wherever you want. And if there was a specific question, then I might focus in on that first. But I just tend to go in the same order that I placed it down. So let's take a look at these in terms of their yin and yang, since I didn't go through all of those, just so you can see how this would start to give you quite a lot of information. So with the first one, we have the wheel. And of course, that is being stuck on a wheel. And this is in the position of the career, professional development. I'm going to take this out here. So that I have that. So that's what you heard me clicking things, so that I can kind of keep track of that as I go along. So here we have number 8. So we're going to look up number 8 in the book, and you'll see that this is the wheel, but it is in the yin position because it is reversed. So this says you think that you're moving, but you're really not. You're just going around in circles. So work-wise, it's just kind of on that hamster wheel cycle. But it says if you keep going in the way you're going, you're not getting anywhere. So it says but then it tells you, well, how do I get out of this? And that's what I really like about this particular oracle, is it actually gives you a message of how to go about getting to. It's not enough to say, okay, you're stagnant, you're in a, okay, that's great to know. They probably already know that. So what do we do about it? And this says you need to stop, step aside, and recalibrate. You need to take that moment to stop, reassess, and then go in a different direction. Like, don't keep doing what you're doing. It's not working. So I quite like that. And this is very appropriate, I think, for this person's professional and career status right at the moment. So then when we go to the upper right here, because I'm just going to follow 1 to 2, you don't have to do this. That's simply how I do it. But you can pick any of them because you have, you're seeing where the houses are basically, where the positions are, and you can go to the position that is most interesting to you or to your client. But I would move up here then, okay, what's going on in the realm of relationships, love, romance, those kinds of things. Well, we have stability that's flipped upside down. So that tells us it's in the yin position, it's reversed. Which is interesting because, yes, obviously in a relationship, most of the time we want something that is stable. And this is interesting because in the yin position, it says the potential is there. But if you really want this relationship that this may be addressing to be long-lasting, then you really need to look at what's going on underneath. And then make sure that what's going on is constant motion, which is so interesting because it says here, true stability is achieved by the constant state of creation and transformation. So you don't want things to stagnate. While we want relationships to be stable, there needs to be that constant transforming creative energy flowing underneath of it. And so I love that. To me is a very helpful message in realm of a relationship. So then when we move to the third position, which is the domestic sphere, family, these kinds of things, it can also relate to the past. It very often does show up as the past for me. We do have the Cauldron in the Yang position. So this is in that active state. And so we know that it also, this developmental phase, prophecy of success, that's all applies to it. But because it's action, because it's an active energy, it says you're right in the middle of going in the right direction. It's keep going forward. It's favorable to go forward. It's and it says that the Cauldron is used both for cooking and for sacred arts. So to nurture both your everyday things of cooking, as well as, and it kind of for me reminds me, because it's in the position of the daily life, that everything is sacred. And even when it feels like we're just cooking or doing dishes, we're actually doing something sacred, and we're moving in the right direction with our family life, with our daily living, these kinds of things. Things are going along well. Keep doing what you're doing. Whereas this is saying, this isn't working what you're doing. You need to step aside and go from a different point of view. So that to me is very useful information. When we move up and look at his finances, or his personal prosperity, assets, resources, these kinds of things, we have a Serenity reverse, which certainly makes sense when we're having some problems in the career area that can impact, obviously, our finances. And so that is, to me, not surprising to have that show up there. So let's take a look. Again, I just want you to see how these can shift when you are... why I think it's important to use the yin energy, the reversals. Because if this was upright, this would say you're in a resting state, but it's a balanced and stable one, right? And so you really wouldn't think much about that. Where if we flip this upside down, we have that there are inconsistencies and fluctuations going on. And so there isn't a serene feeling about it. There isn't a balance about it, because this isn't a rat race. It's throwing this off, and we've got things coming in and then things going out, maybe too much going out financially that's coming in. So we have that state of flux and not having serenity in the finances, which, as I said, makes sense when you look at these together. That's why I feel like this deck just really shines with its reversals, and it really shines with the ability to give you some suggestions on how to move forward or when to stop, just movement based. And I just find that so refreshing. Sometimes I'll even pull this as an oracle card, because I want to see what is the action that I should be doing. So I will, kind of have them left, mishmashed reversals all in place, shuffle them that way, and pull one to give me that movement information, and it works quite lovely as that. Now, so that was up here, number 4. Number 5 is the health and well-being, sort of the personal health of the person. And here we have prosperity. So that's a good, and it's in the yang position, so it's in the active. And this is saying advancing bodes well. It's favorable to proceed. You're going to reap, good things. You're going to have abundance. What you want is coming to you. So in the sense of health and well-being, this is a good card to have show up, right? Okay, work's a little not out of whack. Finances are a little, we got to focus on those, because right now this section is doing well. Right? So we kind of pick our, because this is kind of a check-in, so then we can say, okay, what needs to be focused on? Well, we're already kind of getting a feel for what needs to be focused on. We need to do some work at making sure creation and transformation and that energy is still going under the surface of the relationship so that it doesn't stagnate and you lose it. We need to pay attention with some things about career and finances. So we're starting to say, okay, here's some things that we've got to work on as we move forward. Again, I very often do these on full moons and new moons for myself, mostly. I have done them for other people, but mostly for myself. Just the way that I consecrated this deck, it feels very personal, but I probably should push through that because I get great readings with it. Okay, so that was a number 5. Number 6 down here is people around us, not family though. And here we have 25, which is fate. So this is the idea of destiny, but it is flipped upside down in the yin position. And so when we do this, it says there are some ways, so it reads for yin, unavoidable does not mean unfavorable. Do not resist the effect caused by past karma. This is very interesting, just because I have talked with this person the other day, and this is regarding a person's in their sphere, friends, community, people, just other relationships outside of family ones, and this is very appropriate. So, just sometimes we are in the process of sowing what we read. These friends around him, this particular I know who this is relating to, and to me it says that message of, I'm sorry, I'm like trying to say enough to make where it makes sense, but not say anything personal. But this makes sense because it says that this person that is around them is in reaping what they have set into motion, and while it seems difficult for that person, they're going to reap the benefit of it. They've just got to live out, their actions, the consequences of their actions, and it is going to actually be beneficial for them. So I think that to me is very poignant in that particular position. Obviously, I'll talk to this person more directly, but I do think that that's very appropriate to have show up because it's in the yin position. If this was in the yang, it would be destined for greatness, victory is assured. It's very different. So it's important, I think. And again, you can use this however you want. I guess I'm just trying to say I have seen quite a lot of depth by using the yin and the yang energy of these cards. So that was number 6. Number 7 is about your kind of creative expression, I feel like. It's that kind of fire energy for me. And here we have being on a journey. It's time to actually go somewhere with some creative endeavors, which may actually in some way be tied with the career. And for this particular person, needing to get creative, taking a calculated risk is going to bring success. Thinking outside of the box, this person's creativity often expresses itself in that sort of business-minded thinking, thinking different ways of way through. And I feel like this, in some way, for me, is sort of connected. It's that way of really getting into his creative groove in terms of taking risks and maybe shifting. That's going to be that side step needed in the career to sort of open things up. That's kind of how I'm seeing that one in that particular position. In the realm of number 8, not everybody is in school, but we are all learning something, and that's a little bit more how I read this position. Again, we all, take things, and Benabel even says in this, this book, if you know how to read cards, like, you are going to fall into this and kind of make what works for you. And so that if there is a person, if they're in the position of needing schooling and things of that nature, or trying to decide on schooling, then I definitely use this. But sometimes it's just, what is it that you need to know? What is it you need to learn? That's sometimes what I use that particular position for. And here we have the shift in the yin position. And so what it says for that is that there is potential for success. But there is adjustments that have to be learned, and not to be so resistant to change. So isn't that interesting? Because this is saying that things are running around in a wheel, and we've got to stop, step aside and kind of recalibrate and move in a different direction. And this over here is saying one of the lessons needed to be learned here is to not be resistant to change. That sometimes if something isn't working, stop what you're doing. It's time to change things, and that's the lesson that this person's learning right now. And you can definitely see how that's playing out here in the reading, and I think that's really fantastic. So then we move to the last one of the achievement, and this is about your ambitions. I kind of look at this a little bit as the future cast, sort of how are things moving along? How are they moving forward? If this can kind of be looked at as the past, which I know technically then this should be the future, but this one kind of has that sense of your achievement of your ambitions tells me what is it that you're reaching for and where are you sort of on that progress. And we have here longevity in the yin energy. And so it says that the potential for success is there, but to pay attention to your health and well-being and strive to live blissfully. So if you're, instead of being on the wheel, if you're on that place where you are living out your passions, taking a journey in a direction of your creativity and how you like to express yourself, and again, following your bliss, as Joseph Campbell says, that's where your success is going to lie, or where this person's success is going to lie. So again, that's just like a quick way of how I would go about doing this, using the Chinese Oracle Script Divination cards by Benevolence Wen, and using the Lo Shu Square 9-card spread. And this is generally how I use this deck. The other way that I might use this deck is, again, the only other way that I guess I generally use this is either drawing it for just the energy. So if I've done a reading and I want to know that sort of, I feel like, especially, I get a lot of times people asking for questions about feeling stagnated, needing to move forward. And so sometimes when it has to do with needing to know forward motion or something along that lines, if I do a geomancy and it shows like cursor or something where somebody is feeling stuck or is stuck, I will sometimes just pull a single card and see, well, look at what comes up here. We have the Cauldron reversed. A shakeup is needed. It's time to dump the cauldron over, dump out whatever's in there, scrub out the inside of it, and start fresh. So this actually tells me some motion or something that, you know, what do we do with this situation? We've done all the reading to figure out things out, but what do we actually do? Or we have the journey. Okay, it's time for a voyage. It's time to settle in for the long haul, perhaps. You know, this type of thing. So I use it often like that. The only other way that I've used this deck is just in a 3-card about a specific situation, and I generally read the middle card as sort of the primary, and then I will look to the 2 cards to sort of give more information about that primary card if I'm trying to be very specific about, you know, just as you would read a 3-card. So those are the ways that I use this deck, but most often I use it as that check-in that we just did with the Lo Shu Square. Sort of a general reading. So there we have it. This is a wonderful stone. This is a crystal garden quartz, and this is a lucky Chinese coin lucky charm that Zach gave me in a trade with a deck trade that we did, and it has been, these have been hanging out together, and look at how happy they are to hang out with the Chinese script oracle. So I hope that you've enjoyed this. In the link below is the link to where you can print one of these out for yourself for free, or you can, again, with the files that is given there, you will be able to send this to playingcard.com or make your own playing cards or some site like of that type. That's the one that I used, and actually have it printed out on cardstock like I did. But you can print this on your own. It's black and white, so it's not even going to take up a lot of ink or colored ink, and so you can have this for yourself. So I think that that is fantastic that Benevolence has offered this, and it is a really great, I didn't realize how much this was connected with her Tao of Craft, and so that makes me even more excited to be waiting for that particular book of hers to come out. So there we have it, the Chinese Script Oracle by Benevolence Wen.